Content, monetization, and business strategies change as the creator grows in their niche. And in today's video, we're going to talk about those three stages and how they will evolve. First of all, to lay out the format. In the columns, we will have the experimentation, so your small creators, evolution, your medium-sized creators, and maturity, your large creators. I'm not putting subscribers count to them yet, primarily because, depending on your niche, medium-sized creator could be 100,000 or could be 1,000,000 subscribers. Same way where for the experimentation stage, they all roughly will start at sub 1,000. And for the maturity, as I said, it can be anything depending on how big your niche is. And as I said, we're going to talk about content strategy, monetization strategy, and business strategy. Jumping straight into the experimentation stage. At that point in time, as a creator, your primary content strategy should be to just experiment and try new things. I say publish 100 video. I've said before many times, depending on your niche, the final number can differ, but with the short form content proliferation and other forms of content that you can potentially post, I still think that the number roughly holds. But maybe if you're a multimedia creator and you have newsletters and a podcast and you're experimenting with short form content, it's 100 across all of them, primarily because this is what will tell you what you enjoy. If you manage to create 100 pieces of content within a particular area and you're still enjoying it, you're on the right track, and it will tell you the direction of travel going forward. Try everything in the sense of if you want to experiment with different multimedia, whatever is available to you. If you can afford a camera, use the camera. If you cannot afford the camera, maybe start with a newsletter, use your phone, record short form content, do the podcast, audio only if you don't want to be on camera, but just try things out. And don't chase the trends because trends are fleeting, they change. You should be focused on what you enjoy first and foremost. And then you start worrying about some of these other parameters. And this is where for the monetization strategy, first and foremost, don't worry about it. Genuinely, don't worry about how and when you're going to make money. Don't rush towards that goal because right now we're still trying to figure out what will you make in content long term. And this is where the final point is for the business strategy. Focus on the value. Don't chase different types of things that others might be telling you in the sense of like, oh, you need to start worrying about immediately building a team, or you need to start worrying about trying out different monetization options, different types of businesses that you want to build. You're here trying to have fun. The critical portion of any creator's journey is to find something they will enjoy and they can do it even they're not getting paid for. And this is why you should be focused on being more giving, providing that value. And the reason why also value is important is that you need to justify why would folks consume your content? Why would they read your newsletter? Why would they listen to your podcast or watch your videos? Find the kind of value you're going to provide and make sure it's unique enough. At this point in time, as you're experimenting, it doesn't necessarily have to be super unique, right? You can be maybe picking stuff from your favorite creators. If say you're in the cooking genre, you like what some of the top creators are doing, but maybe you want to just focus on Asian cuisine, or maybe you just want to focus on Middle Eastern cuisine. That's a good starting point. And this is your value prop. You're going to become their go-to expert whenever they want to make something from the Middle Eastern cuisine. That's the type of value you provide, and focus on it and try to create multiple pieces of content. Build up to the point where you've created enough in that specific genre that you feel like, A, you can provide the value. It seems like the viewers, as they're consuming your content, they're excited. They feel like they were rewarded for the time they spent consuming your content. And for you, you had fun. And now that you've done enough of that, you're entering that evolution stage. And this is where, yes, we finally start worrying about the packaging. Don't listen to anyone who tells you that you have to worry about titles and thumbnails at the very beginning. I strongly disagree because you need to learn how to fill the box with valuable content for your audience instead of putting the best wrapper possible on that box, and when the viewer opens that box, there's emptiness inside. This is why I emphasize worry about delivering the value first in the initial stage, and only now start thinking about packaging. And now, yes, start worrying about titles, thumbnails, spend more time on ideation, start desiring an idea that you feel like, hey, will both ignite you when you're trying to create a new piece of content, but also will be valuable to your audience, and start building up and kind of like defining that niche for yourself. And as I said, make it your own in the sense of This is where, after you've made about 100 pieces of content, you will know what you like, what you don't like. You'll develop a certain style of how you deliver the content, and it will start looking like something distinct, something of your own. And this is where you start arriving at the place where you can, in a very short sentence, define the uniqueness of your content and the uniqueness of the value that you provide. And now, at this point in time, hopefully you grew enough of the audience, you start building up different ways by which you can monetize your content. But I'm right away saying, still focus. If you have an AdSense or some sort of like creator fund on your platform, whether you're TikTok, IG versus say on YouTube or Spotify, and they have partnership program, that's all dandy. I'm not even listing it here because that should be just there in the background. Right now, you can start looking at brand partnerships and memberships. Memberships being whether you have a membership on your channel directly, say if you're on YouTube, or maybe you have a Patreon page, or maybe you have some sort of other service. Maybe you're OnlyFans creator, use Fansly or some of these other platforms. This is as most as I would do at this stage as you're trying to evolve, because don't get distracted worrying about physical products, digital products, worrying about, oh, do I need to start a business? Do I provide the services? No, you're still figuring it out. You're just starting to master the content side of things. You're starting finally catching that wave and getting in the groove of providing the value with your content. Don't get distracted with multiple different projects. Memberships are easy because you can turn them on, have some minimal additional piece of content, maybe some sort of behind the scenes or Q&A session every once in a while, or maybe nothing, and you just say, hey guys, I'm opening it up just if you would like to support me, pay me a couple of bucks, buy me a coffee, so to speak, right? Using one of those platforms. And brand partnerships, hopefully, if you have the size of the channel by then where the brand partnerships are attractive, cool, they'll come to you, or maybe you'll quickly find them in your network as you meet some of the folks. If they don't, not a huge deal, because again, right now is still the focus of evolving the content strategy side of things. On the business strategy, this is where I think it's important for you, and I have dedicated videos on those, so go check them out. Study the value flow. The value flow in the creator economy is essentially how the money and the value travels throughout the creator economy. Depending on your niche, it may slightly vary, but generally you have your brands and the viewers, and in between you have the platforms, the agencies, the brokers, so like your agents or the managers, and the creators transporting that value. I have a dedicated video, go check it out. For now, at this stage, worry only about the viewers and the brands, because without the brands, we won't have any money kind of like being injected into the creator economy to attract the viewers towards a product or service. Without the viewer, there will be no one to sell those products or services to. So we need to make sure that they're there, and you need to understand their motivations. Study, do some research, Google, use AI, go to the events, meet some of the people, but really understand what drives brands. Depending on the niche, it can vary. If you're in a certain niche where the services are prevalent, maybe it's more about the impressions and brand recognition. Maybe if you're something more unique in terms of like being a very niche type of industry, maybe it's all about conversions for these brands, because they know that they're not going to get a massive awareness, and it's all about finding those very tight-knit groups of individuals and selling their product to them or their service to them. And the same for the viewers. Understand what kind of value they're seeking. Again, whole separate video that I made about 3 types of value that the viewers seek. They seek to be entertained, educated, or informed. So understand, who are you creating towards? You've now created certain value around the videos. Ask yourself, why would they watch your video over something else? Start understanding kind of like the jobs to be done of your video versus something else, and how it matches the motivations of your viewer, because now you're starting to become more evolved creator, hence the name of the stage, right? You're now starting to not only evolve the type of content you're making, ideation process, packaging, but you're also now starting to ask yourself, how can it be attractive for the brands to put their ads against it, or maybe sign up brand partnerships with you? And you will not be able to do it if you don't understand their motivation. But also, how do I make these viewers to keep coming back and watch more of my content? Because repeated viewers is kind of like the cornerstone and this underlying bedrock that will support your business. So what do I do for them? What kind of value do I provide? And how can I do it on a recurring basis so they keep coming back? Understand those things in theory. We will talk about application in a second. Oh, look, we're already talking about the application in a second. So now you're hitting the maturity stage. Now you are hopefully the large creator in the space. And now you have to develop repeatable formats and get consistent with them. Repeatable formats meaning kind of like hot ones. It's a very repeatable format. They've been doing it for however many seasons. I think it's like 20 plus seasons at this point. And consistency is there because if you are to build a sustainable business around it, if you are to be a full-time creator at this point, you need to have some sort of cadence to it. And again, depending on the type of channel you are, right? Or the type of media you make, your cadence might be once a month or once every couple of months, but it's a massive project. Or maybe like me, you're doing videos weekly and you also post shorts daily, right? So cadences will matter for the type of content you create and how complex your content is, but consistency is all that matters, in my opinion, in the creator economy when it comes to content creation, the maturity state level, because if you don't have any consistency, you don't have predictability. If you don't have predictability, you cannot build sustainable business around it, even if it's just you and supporting yourself with a full-time employment, being a creator. And unfortunately, you do have to start thinking about experimenting again, primarily because you don't want to get stagnant. You don't want to get stuck in the ways and eventually seeing some of the viewers drop off because just they got bored. They've seen it all. They've seen this format and they just don't want to continuously consume it. You have to start with that experimentation stage. And one of the best advices, and I'm forgetting whether it was Patty Galloway or Jude, who are two YouTube strategists, but I always like that format of experiment and maybe make 3 content pieces within the same type of style that you've been doing by now, probably for like 5-10 years, or do do 3 standard and then do 1 which is an experiment and see how audience respond. Like Ryan Trahan is a great example of individual who did the Penny series and started experimenting, found this whole I visit 1-star hotels or 1-star restaurants, start talking about Airbnbs, and now he's doing this whole 50 days and 50 different Airbnbs, right? So like his content evolved by essentially merging 2 different types, visiting Airbnbs and Penny series, but now it's kind of like a combined series that has pieces of both, and it's amazingly successful, deservedly so. So this is why you want to start experimenting, finding those different formats. From the monetization strategy, it's all about stability. You now look for the stable revenue streams, which again, that's why you need that consistency in the content. You want to make sure if you try to remain independent and work full-time as a creator, you need consistent income, and this should be a focus. And the war chest is there to smooth out inconsistencies in case things happen, economic downturn, something else happening. Maybe your main brand partner, went bankrupt, unfortunately, maybe something happened. You want to have the war chest built out. Again, it depends on how much you spend. My rule of thumb, at least 6 months worth of your basic expenses. Not extraordinary expenses, but like if you have a mortgage by then, maybe you have a car payment, you have, I don't know, school fees for your kids or something like that. Those things should be covered in the war chest for 6 months, plus whatever the business expenses might be. If you have maybe an editor and staff or something like this, that's bare minimum. I think you need to have in the back pocket just to make sure if things do not go as expected, you have something to smooth it out. And don't overreach yourself. We're talking within this space from the perspective of individual creator. We will talk. I actually have a secret second version of this, specifically if you are trying to build a business. But if you're trying just to be an independent creator, making content by yourself, and maybe you have like an editor and then you hire a freelance thumbnail designer, something like this, that's all great. From the monetization perspective, don't overreach. If you're successful, things are stable, you're happy with where you're going, don't get too distracted if all of a sudden someone shows up on your doorstep. It's like, hey, let's start this business together. It's going to be so amazing. If this is not part of your North Star and it's a distraction from that consistency of the content, I would question if you should do it. Again, whole other separate video where I talk about the strategies for like a lifestyle creator versus creator mogul. And if you're a lifestyle creator in the sense of like you want to have that stable way of life as a creator where you don't necessarily manage 100 people, don't get distracted by those ideas because they will stray you away from the path, distract you from your content, make your content worse. And if your content is worse, you have less views. And if you have less views, you make less money per month. And that whole conversation about stable revenue goes out of the window. Remain focused on what your goal is, even if there's some lucrative opportunity that you know will take a lot of time. And from the perspective of the business strategy, low cash burn, legal and taxes. Low cash burn ensures that, again, with a stable revenue, you also have a stable set of expenses and you don't oversubscribe, you don't overhire 10 different people if you plan to be a lifestyle creator. Legal, take care of any kind of like unforeseen circumstances by ensuring if you're contracting someone, there's a legal documentation. If you're working with a brand, there's a contract in place to protect you, protect them, ensure there's no additional liabilities that you're creating that might expose and create additional costs because, again, we're trying to keep the cash flow low. And finally, taxes, pay them. Don't mess around with the governments, especially here in the United States. Don't mess around with IRS. Don't listen to people who say, oh, they fired everyone in IRS. They don't have time to inspect you. Trust me, they don't have time to audit billionaires. They will have time to audit you and your small business. So pay your taxes, be a good, so to speak, citizen. Take care of those things because, again, that's all introduces risk and exposure, which you don't need. Now, to hear you say, I actually want to hire a potentially 100 people. I want to have my own brand. I want to build something like a media company around me. I got you covered. We have a second version of this, which really just changes around the monetization strategy and business strategy. Everything else holds the same because up until that point of maturity, I'm very insistent on not overreaching yourself and starting different businesses. But now that you're mature, you're ready to go and explore different monetization opportunities. Let's talk about first diversity of the revenue. Because you plan to hire multiple individuals and maybe you want to build a team, maybe you want to build a company, now you can no longer depend on just AdSense or say brand partnerships because they're still dependent on the economic environment, where the brands are, how they're investing in the platform policies against your type of niche. You need to make sure you have multiple different streams of revenue, and that's where your business ideas come in. War chest still remains the same, but now the war chest actually has to take into account your employees. So if you have a team, say maybe it's not everyone, not all the freelancers, but if you have a core team you need to sustain, guess what? Now you need to make sure for at least 6 months they're covered as well. And you have that cash in the bank account so that you can maintain the business and not lose it if there's like economic downturn or something is happening, and you need to kind of like, again, smooth out those inconsistencies. And biggest thing that's going to be the biggest challenge for you if you're trying to build a real big multimedia business on top of it is non-content based revenue. The idea here is that eventually, maybe you might want to step away from the camera or make less content because you're focusing now on building this business. Or maybe you want to employ another creator who's going to be a stand-in for you, right? Whatever they might be. You need to start think about what kind of revenue streams and what kind of businesses you can start that generate the revenue, even if you're not in front of the camera, even if you're not posting consistently. Because consistency here starts becoming less and less important in some cases, because now you have those businesses to rely on, right? Like, again, Ryan Trahan has Joy right now. Mr. Beast has Feastables, which is a massive revenue stream for him that he pumps into his content. So people develop those businesses like Mark Rober, Crunch Labs, right? They now have an opportunity and an ability to rely on that consistent revenue to support their creator side of things, right? So it's almost like flips and inverse. If before content was providing the revenue to support your business ideas, you need to make sure at this maturity stage, your business ideas support with the revenue, all the content creation side, because they're going to be more stable and more predictable. And this is where from the business strategy, it's important for you to start thinking about topics like commercial operations, team, and growth strategies. Commercial operations means you're now thinking about, okay, it's almost like watch my video about Linus Media Group. You now will have a team of people who are responsible for content and for the business side. Okay, so what's happening on the content side? What kind of videos do you need to create? You probably will have like an editorial plan, and you'll have pieces of content you're developing potentially months and months in advance, because that's how well you can plan now. From the business perspective, you have a team that's responsible for your finance, for your accounting, potentially for your legal, right? They're responsible if you're dealing with the physical product, receivables, shipments, storage, maintenance, all those kind of things, support, returns, right? All that fun stuff. Again, I have some dedicated videos on this, or feel free to reach out and I can always chat with you about it. I've been doing commercial operations for 15 plus years, so very versed in that. And that's where also the team is important, because depending on the type of business you're building, okay, now who do I hire, where they are, what the team should look like, what kind of responsibilities they will carry. Again, dedicated video on this. A lot of these things kind of like branching out into conversations I've had before. I just wanted to make sure we have a nice summary view. But yes, there are a couple of frameworks like an Octopus framework inspired by Marquise Brownlee, where you can start thinking about the kind of teams you need to build around yourself. And that's where also the growth strategies matter, because you can no longer just think about, hey, I have this successful product. I have my version of Feastables. We're good. You're good for now, but there'll be competitors at your doors. Now you have to worry about that brand, and obviously you're going to have a team to help you with that. But now, where do you go next? Do you build another type of brand? Do you build and grow out your brand? Are there new product lines, new type of content? Maybe you start exploring different types of content that you haven't touched before. Maybe you've been always video only, but now it's time to explore podcasts or newsletters, things of that nature. How will you continue to grow the pie so that you can support all the different pieces of the pie within it? This is kind of like becomes like a very fun part of the job, right? Especially for someone like me. I've been doing that kind of job with the startups, and I see creators now slowly evolving to it. But in kind of like overall summary, to tie both of those frameworks together. If you're that individual creator who just wants to have maybe minimal to no team and just ensure that the content supports you long term as a full-time employment, don't feel bad when you look over your shoulder and you see some of these creators who are trying to open and start businesses and brands and kind of like, create actual media or physical product or digital product goods companies, maybe support and services and events. It's a lot of work. A lot of people need to be involved. You have to hire people, manage people. You need to worry about all of these topics and subjects, regulations, employment laws. It's a lot of different things you have to worry about. If you're into it, that's awesome, right? There are people like me who can come and join you and work with you on those things. But if you're an individual who just want to make sure you continuously create the content that you love creating, stay in touch with your audience, and that's where you draw the line, draw that line. Don't feel bad about it. Your life is a lot simpler than for some of these other folks. And this is why I wanted to talk about what your life looks like from the content, monetization, the business strategy as you're just starting, as you're kind of like evolving, and as you're becoming a mature creator. So I hope it was useful. If you have any questions, drop them in the comment section below or just reach out. I'm always happy and excited to talk about the creators one-on-one about this kind of things. I do it for free. It's like not some sort of secret course that I'm about to sell you. There's a whole other video, in my opinion, on courses. But in general, love this topic. I love seeing the evolution of the creators into the place where they now care about those things. They care about monetization strategy. They care about business strategy. They start thinking about the teams, the physical products, digital products, events. It's fun. It's fun. I enjoyed doing this kind of work for the last 15 years with different entrepreneurs in SaaS world. And it's just fun to see now some of my favorite creators entering the same area and seeing how they find their way through it. So really enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed it as well. Let me know in the comment section below if you have any questions. Otherwise, I'll see you next Saturday. Peace.